We are back talking sports and having lunch.
12 o'clock, I got lunch with Steve Russell.
The Dean of Sports Talk is coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill Studios.
A long, long run and a great run.
Make sure you search for Sports Scene on Facebook, YouTube, and over 30 audio platforms, including Apple and Spotify.
I've been listening to you basically since I was a little kid.
When you live in the community, be part of the community. Sports Scene with Steve Russell is something that is so iconic.
And here's your host, Steve Russell.
Hey, how are you? Welcome once again to another edition of our Sports Scene podcast for Monday. Zach Rothrock is our producer today. We appreciate his work and we appreciate you tuning in to the broadcast. If all goes according to what we were planning on doing today, we're going to be talking with Matt McCall. If that name sounds familiar, Matt coached now in our business, and Matt will be talking about the Final Four. We'll also be talking to Steffi Sorensen, former Gator basketball player now with the SEC Network, about women's NCAA basketball. Florida baseball will take on Vanderbilt, and their play-by-play voice, Andrew Allegretta, is going to join us. And we hope to have Arkansas softball coach Courtney Deifel on with us as Gator softball will take on Arkansas. So that's what we have planned for you today if all goes the way we hope it will go. In the meantime, there are so many people who are stoked about the Gators being in the Final Four, and they should be. And you know, if you've never been and you're planning on going, soak it all in. Soak it all in. As a fan, soak it all in. Because it's a national championship. You get to see, you know, fans from the other schools. And let's face it, this doesn't happen every day. It's been a while for Florida, but enjoy it if you're going to go. Even if you're not going to go, I hope you have enjoyed the ride that Todd Golden and company have given you with this team. So fun to watch. And what's cool for me, having coached a little bit, is to see the improvement in a guy like Thomas Houck, in a guy like Denzel Aberdeen. You know, being able to see that, I think is really, really cool to see the improvement they've made. That's coaching. That's their hard work. You know, that's really fun to see. And having two SEC teams in it is also really good. But now we're going to start by talking softball. And the Gators softball team getting set to face Arkansas. And Arkansas's coach, Courtney Deifel, now joins us. Hi, Courtney. How are you? Thank you. I appreciate you doing this. For Gator fans who don't know about your team, discuss your team, what's gone right. A lot's gone right for you so far this year. Tell us about your team.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good year so far. I think our last couple series, SEC series, have been strong. Our first two weren't as great, which happens a lot, you know, in softball. But we are coming off a sweep of Kentucky, and we are diving into our prep for Florida. So we head out to Gainesville this Thursday.
The first couple of weeks, as you said, maybe didn't go the way you'd hoped it would. But what part of your team do you think has improved the most from start of the year to now?
Well, I really think that we've just grown together as a group. I think we've handled adversity a little better. I think that's where, we weren't playing that well at the start of the SEC season. We had a really good non-con. We got to SEC. It kind of like slapped us in the face a little bit. And I think it was more so just the greenness of our team. And the first time things just really didn't go our way. And so I think that those couple weeks, it was a grind. We're getting back on track. And this team just continues to grow. They're a really connected group. They're a passionate group, very talented. And so sometimes you just have to learn how to handle that emotion of the ups and downs of the game. And I think that's what they continue to get better with every weekend.
I know this varies depending on when you play somebody, if it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But without giving away, what you do, when do you start you say you're going to start the process. What does that entail in terms of scouting a team and what you're going to do getting ready for Florida?
Well, we dive into the numbers a lot. That's going to be today, diving into the numbers, really diving into the video to start our prep for their pitchers. And obviously with Florida getting Rothrock back this past weekend, that's a huge piece to Florida's pitching staff. I think their staff's done a really great job of stepping up while Rothrock's been out. And then it didn't seem like she skipped a beat when she came back in this weekend against Auburn. So it's diving into the video prep for that, and then just starting to prepare for any defensive shifts, anything that they do offensively that we need to be prepared for defensively. And then from our pitching side, just how we're going to attack their very potent offense, their lineup. So, that's what our staff's doing today. Our players are resting, going to school, and then we'll really dive into that with them tomorrow.
I'm curious about this, Courtney. How'd you get into coaching?
Well, my dad's a coach. He's a retired junior college baseball coach in California, the winningest junior college baseball coach in California.
Wow.
And for me, I played at Cal. I played in Japan after college, and my mom was always a big advocate for me and my sister of getting our masters. And so when I finished in Japan, I went to grad school at Oklahoma. I was a GA for Patty Gasso. And she and Missy Lombardi are the two that kind of just told me I should be open to it, give it a try. And so out of my 1.5 years of being a GA with them, I decided to try coaching. They showed me kind of what it looks like behind the curtain. I love the strategy. I love the relationships. And so I gave it a try, and apparently now I'm a lifer. So I love this profession. Although it keeps changing, we keep having to wear a few different hats. I love the relationships. I love getting to work with these women and getting to help them find their best version. So pretty cool.
I'm glad you mentioned the changes, because I was going to sort of lead you down that path here. We all know NIL and, the changes of that. But, I think sometimes when fans go see a team, they're rooting for that team. But behind the scenes, there are so many different things that coaches now have to do. Can you discuss some of those changes and how that's affected you, or how that's changed what you do as a coach?
Well, yeah, I think the biggest change in the last handful of years is just the transfer portal. And I think with softball, we were a little ahead of the rest of the college athletics landscape of we could transfer and play right away. Where others had to sit out, we only had to sit out in conference. And so we were a little ahead with that. So we've been dealing with the portal a little bit more. So that's one of the big things that's changed. Obviously, as NIL comes in, that changes for everybody, but it also changes the playing field a little bit of, some obviously have a lot more than others. And so it just changes the recruiting piece of it. And now as we get into rev share, and I think all of us are sitting going, what's going to happen? It's the biggest change is not having all the answers. We got a dose of that in COVID, but we continue to have to navigate times where we don't have all the answers, and just kind of do a wait and see and try to make the most out of all of it. But we're wearing different hats. A lot of us got into this just to coach, and
Yeah.
And now we're having to do more things. And so it's just trying to learn on the fly and be the best you can be at all the things we're asked to do.
The sport is so popular now, and it's great to see that. But I wonder, do you think there'll come a day in women's college softball when they would move the fences back at all? Do you think that time is here, or do you think that would ever happen?
Oh, I don't know. I'm a pitching coach, so obviously I would say with that. But I think it might come a day, but I don't think it's any day soon. I think we like we have in this game. I like the athleticism. So I think that we would probably look to do other things before we move the fences back. But we'll see. I'm not sure.
Last question.
They don't ask me, which
they don't
crazy.
ask.
I mean, why?
I don't get that.
I mean, what the heck? They haven't called me about it, but I'll be ready when they do.
Last question. When Florida reinstituted softball, I was one of their radio guys. And I can remember 1-0, 2-1, a lot of slapping, one pitcher throwing gazillions of innings. And now, it's not quite like baseball, but, there's 4, 5, 6 arms now, on teams. That's necessary now just to give hitters different looks, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the game's changed so much from, the pitching distance being 40 feet. We moved it back to 43 feet. We used to play with a white ball. Now we play with a optic yellow ball that has a harder core that flies a little bit more. We have compression bats. And then one of the biggest changes is now all the technology that we have, which is great. But it also is like when we pull into Gainesville, for instance, we are going to have seen every pitch they've thrown, every at bat they've had. We are going to know the measurements on it. We're going to know everything, and they will for us. And so there's no secrets anymore. Everybody, the scouting is on such a different level. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing, but it's going to, we're going to rely on more arms. We're going to have to make more changes. And because there's just too much information, there's too much technology, the game is advanced. It's way more offensive. And so we just have to try to stay ahead of those adjustments.
Appreciate your time, Courtney. Thank you. Don't forget Arkansas coming to town to take on the Gators Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Friday. Okay. I'm sorry. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this weekend. Okay. Safe journey here. Thank you for your time, Courtney.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Courtney Deifel, softball coach at Arkansas, coming to town to face the Gators this weekend. Next up, we're going to talk Gator basketball. Matt McCall, hopefully, is going to join us next to talk about the NCAA tournament, Final Four, etc. Stay with us on our Sports Scene podcast.
What's up, everyone? I'm Mike Pouncey, and this is my twin brother, Marquise Pouncey, and this is Life After Football.
Let's go. We are the owners of Tropical Distillery, and JF Hayden's is our liqueur brand. We have 5 different flavors: a mango, a lychee, an espresso, citrus, and key lime pie. We pride ourselves on not only being a Florida-made brand, but also a cocktail solution. With that being said, cheers and go Gators.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Roos Ogra for your personal price plan today.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to our Sports Scene podcast for this Monday. Obviously, Gator men's basketball in the Final Four. 2 SEC teams are there, and we're going to bring in former UMass and Chattanooga coach Matt McCall to join us here. You can see him, NBC Sports, also Sirius XM, Field of 68. Matt, it's great to have you. Thanks for taking the time.
question about that. So when I get an opportunity to do it, I'm an alum. I worked there for 11 years. I have to be, somewhat, neutral in this whole new role that I'm in, not coaching, but deep down inside, I bleed orange and blue, and could not be happier for those guys.
As you watched Florida play over the course of the year, Matt, what were your impressions of their play and, what they did in terms of getting to the Final Four?
Steve, it's interesting. I went to practice probably back in October. Just a random Tuesday went up there with a friend of mine that loves hoops and, went to practice. And I remember thinking when they took Elijah Martin, saying to myself, okay, if this team is going to reach its potential, that is dependent upon Elijah Martin, Will Richard, and Walter Clayton all being on the same page. And as I'm watching practice, I'm saying, okay, you couple that ingredient with the size and the physicality that they added into their front court, this team has to be special. They have to stay healthy, but they have a chance and an opportunity to be special, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Walter Clayton gets an enormous amount of credit, as he should. He's, it's almost at times you think he's playing casual, but his ability to stay calm in big moments, much like he did the other night against Texas Tech, is what makes him such a good player. But Elijah Martin being kind of the X factor, Will Richard being able to guard multiple positions, you have the front court. We know how good those guys are. But when you bring in guys off the bench like Houck and Aberdeen who are accepting of their roles, in a day and age in college basketball, that's one of the biggest challenges for these coaches is can they get guys to accept their roles with money and transfer portal and everything like that. That's what this team has, and that's what makes them really, really special.
Put your coach's hat back on, Matt, for a second, because Florida will play Auburn a second time. How much can you glean from the first time around? How do you look at that from an X and O standpoint when you play a team for a second time like that?
You want us to hear a funny story? In the 2007 National Championship, I think we watched our game against Ohio State from December about 17 times. And Coach Donovan in the film room the night before the national championship game, it's 3:30 in the morning, and I think we're getting ready to go to bed. And he says, McCall, put that tape in there again. So I think, one, what you can take from it is, look, what are the things that we did well? Look at the stat sheet to start. What are the things in the game that we did well? Florida scored 91 points, and Elijah Martin didn't even play. All right, what are the things that we did poorly? How was our pick and roll coverage? How's the job that we did on Janai Broome? No Elijah Martin in that game. So where can we, insert him where he has a huge impact? I think there's certain things, and Auburn's going to do the same thing. And, look, whenever they had success in the game, you got to look at it and say, okay, they're going to do these same things. How can we exploit that? How can we take advantage of that on the offensive end of the floor and on the defensive end of the floor? So I think you'll take a lot from it. You'll definitely dissect the tape. Obviously, it was a long time ago. Both teams have made improvements since then. So you have to take that into consideration as well. But, yeah, you'll break down every single piece of that film and, be ready to go.
I was watching Houston, and beginning of the year, I didn't think they were good enough to make it because they didn't shoot well enough. Well, they've improved their three-point shooting, and they smother you defensively. But Duke has so much size up front and a flag, obviously. How do you look at that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, that's, go back to the Purdue game, Steve, and Braden Smith has 15 assists in the game, and he really says, okay, I understand that my team in this matchup does not need me to score. My team needs me to be the facilitator. My team needs me to come off pick and rolls, get two on the ball, which is what Houston does. They blitz ball screens, they trap ball screens, get two on the ball, and make the right play. Braden Smith's size allowed him to do that, and his poise allowed him to do that. You look at yesterday, Zakai Ziegler really, really struggled. I mean, he really struggled, did not have his best stuff, but I think his size hurt him against those guards from Houston and the physicality of their front court when they are trapping those ball screens. And two, Tennessee's not really a pick and roll oriented team. So there's a lot of different factors there that hurt Tennessee, whereas Purdue was one possession away. A Braden Smith defensive lapse from winning that basketball game is ultimately what ended up happening. So I think Proctor for Duke is a big key. Obviously, his size, his ability to make plays coming off pick and rolls, when they do commit two to the ball, when they do trap those pick and rolls, is going to be huge. You just said it, Steve. The size of Duke. This team is big. They're physical. They've got the nation's best player, second best player, whatever you want to call it. I think they should just cut that trophy in half and give it to both those guys. But I just think Duke's athleticism. Look, there's no play calling when you're playing against this Houston team. It's like the old, Frank Martin teams at South Carolina. Coach Donovan used to say it all the time. Like, you're not calling plays. You're keeping the ball in the alley. You're setting middle pick and rolls. And when they trap them and you come off, now all of a sudden you got to throw out of it, and it's time to just go play basketball.
Matt McCall joining us here from NBC Sports, Sirius XM, Field of 68, of course, a longtime member of the Gator coaching staff as well. A lot of people have said this, Matt, but I want to get your thoughts, because sometimes, I can remember when Drew was, working for Billy, and I got to go to a Final Four with him. That was pretty special. And sometimes you don't really get a chance to soak it in, when you're there. Were you able to do that when you went for your with Florida?
Steve, I was so young, and I was just so focused on serving the program, serving Coach Donovan, trying to climb that coaching ladder. And I think one of the things that hurt me as a head coach, not necessarily at Chattanooga because we had great success, but definitely when I got to UMass is I was trying to recreate everything that we did at Florida. Mm-hmm. And what we did at Florida, from Jeremy Foley, our athletic director, to Billy Donovan, our head coach, to Duke Werner, our athletic trainer, to Tracy Paff, our administrative assistant, to everybody, all the assistant coaches, everybody that was involved. And you see the relationship that Billy had with Jeremy Foley. That's why we won. And it's not normal. And we were all so spoiled by being around, hopefully, I think today or tomorrow, he finds out a Naismith Hall of Famer, being around arguably the greatest athletic director of all time, and then everybody else. I tell people this story, Steve. Mark Daignault, the head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder, got married. It was right before the COVID madness. It was probably 2019, 2020. I was the head coach at UMass, but he gets married, and at his wedding was Coach Donovan, Jeremy Foley, Oliver Winterbone, our video coordinator at the time, Duke Werner, our athletic trainer, Tracy Paff, myself, and Mark Daignault was a graduate assistant coach. But all those people showed up to his wedding. That's why we won. And that's why we won at a high level. And what those guys created, and when I say those guys, I'm saying Jeremy Foley and Billy Donovan, it just wasn't normal. And to go to work every day, it never felt like work. And I know this is kind of a long-winded answer, but no, I don't think when you're in the moment, you're able to soak it up enough. You mentioned your son, Drew. My father and mom being in the stands for those. I remember, after the first one, running up into the stands and giving them a hug. Mm-hmm. After the second one, running over to the baseline, hugging my entire family. And I was a graduate assistant and a director of basketball ops. And then in 2014, it was the same thing as an assistant coach. But what those guys created was not normal, and we got spoiled seeing it firsthand and being a part of it. And looking back, man, just the people that Coach Don, he didn't hire me back as an assistant coach because I was the greatest recruiter or the greatest scouting guy or whatever it may be. It was because the relationships within the program was the most important thing to Coach Donovan. And that, to me, is what I take from all those years.
Last thing, sort of a big picture view here, Matt. A lot of people some people have complained that, that having all the number one seeds is not good. I think it was only 11 games where the team that was the worst seed won. NIL is going to change where you're not going to have as many Cinderella opportunities. Is that good for the game? Where do you see the game going in that realm?
Oh, Steve, man, I think we got a heck of a Final Four. I think if any of these four teams cut the nets down, none of us would be shocked. If Florida cuts the nets down, we're all deep down inside, we're celebrating, we wouldn't be shocked. If Auburn cuts the nets down, we won't be shocked. If Duke cuts the nets down, we got a heck of a Final Four. And you look at what UConn did over the last couple of years, the games weren't even close. The games weren't even close. We could get a Villanova, North Carolina type ending in this Final Four, national championship that everybody would remember forever. People will remember Duke or UConn going back to back, but people won't remember probably who they even played because the games were not even close. So I think we've got a heck of a Final Four. I understand. Look, we still got upsets in the first round. McNeese was an upset. They got to the second round. New Mexico was an upset. They got to the second round. Colorado State was one possession away from getting to the Sweet 16. I'm not saying, that those things aren't still going to happen. But look, this Final Four is going to be as good of a Final Four as we've seen in a long time. And we need to be excited about that. Having good games Saturday night, having a good game on Monday night, as a basketball fan, not as a Gator fan or a Gator alum, but as a basketball fan and someone that covers the sport, that's what you want. And I think, Steve, that's what we're going to get. This is going to be a heck of a Final Four.
As we leave, Matt, give yourself another plug. Where can people see and hear you?
Yeah, so I'll be on Sirius XM from the Final Four, Channel 84. We'll be doing shows live from Radio Row. Out there, I believe we're 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Central Time. I'll be doing some stuff over at the Field of 68. I'm helping host an event with Nexus Network, which is a coaches and athlete relocation network. We're doing that on Thursday night from 6 to 9. So we'll be busy out in San Antonio, but I'll definitely make some time for the Gators and the Gator fans. And it'd be great to see some familiar faces like Duke Warner and Tracy Paff. Yeah,
you dove into this broadcasting stuff, dude. You're in. I love it.
I'm in. Look, I don't do anything half. You're going to do it. Let's do it all. Let's go all in.
You betcha. Matt, I always appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you, Steve.
Thank you, Matt. Good guy. Matt McCall joining us here on our Sports Scene podcast for today. Yet to come, a Gator alum, Steffi Sorensen, played her basketball here. You see her on the SEC Network. She will join us to talk about the women's NCAA tournament. And Andrew Allegretta, who was the play-by-play voice of Vanderbilt baseball, will join us to wrap up the show. Daryl has a Facebook Live question. I don't think Janai Broom will be 100% against Florida. What's your take? I don't know if anybody, Daryl, at this juncture of the year is 100% because, it's a long year and bumps and bruises. But no, will he be 100%? Will that arm injury, whatever he had? But, I don't know that it'll be a factor, Daryl, on how he plays. We'll take a break and come back. Stay with us here on our Sports Scene podcast.
What's up, everyone? I'm Mike Pouncey, and this is my twin brother, Marquise Pouncey, and this is Life After Football.
Let's go. We are the owners of Tropical Distillery, and JF Hayden's is our liqueur brand. We have 5 different flavors: a mango, a lychee, an espresso, citrus, and key lime pie. We pride ourselves on not only being a Florida-made brand, but also a cocktail solution. With that being said, cheers and go Gators.
Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Roos Ogra for your personal price plan today.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to our Sports Scene podcast for this Monday. Well, we're going to continue talking basketball. We'll talk Florida basketball because Steffi Sorensen is here. And I know she was watching the Gators. We're going to talk women's NCAA as well. Steffi, welcome. Always good to have you. I know a lot of anxious moments in that game, but I know you were watching. So I'm sure you were pretty glad with the outcome there.
Yeah, Steve, me and Chris Doring were losing it. We were in the sports book in the Atlantis in the Bahamas for Alyssa Lang and Trevor Sycam's wedding. The timing of that, guys, you killed me. You know, right in the middle of the tournament.
Yeah.
Alyssa's honeymoon will be us in Tampa for the Final Four, and hopefully, if she sees this, she'll get a little kick out of that. But you know, when Todd Golden he fouled early and it created a 1-on-1 situation, I think a lot of people were like, why would he do that? But it actually was genius because you sent someone to the line who wasn't that great of a foul shooter, and it set up a lot of opportunities for Florida. And, you know, I think it's really unique to have 4 number 1 seeds on the men's side. And I'm not trying to veer too far off topics here, but hard to argue Florida not being the most talented. You can say what you want about Duke. God, they're talented. But Florida, I think, is just absolutely loaded. I think Auburn's the oldest team, and Houston is just going to guard your you-know-what. So I can't wait for the 4 number 1 seeds to duke it out, literally. But Florida coming through with Walter Clayton Jr., and some of those bigs that Todd Golden has off the bench that can play everywhere was awesome. It was awesome to experience as a fan.
Right. Let's go to the women's side here. You know, Auburn men throughout the year had the mantle of being the number 1 team for a long time. And I think that kind of wore on them. I think you could sort of see it in the way they played. South Carolina has had great success, but I kind of see similar things there. I think maybe that success is wearing on them a little bit. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I guess it comes with the expectations. And,
Yep.
you know, they've shown that they are not perfect, just as Auburn has. And trying to – here's the thing, though, Steve. UCLA is the number 1 overall seed. You would think that all the pressure is on UCLA to get to the Final Four to win it all. They got the number 1 overall seed, but it seems like South Carolina is talked about the most.
Yes.
UConn is favored to win the tournament. So we got a lot of wrinkles within the women's Final Four. But I just think that they've shown they're human, and they have not played well, but they've won. And I think at this point, you know, you just want to you want to win. But I think that, you know, when it comes to Tampa, they're going to have to play better. They're going to have to definitely, the guards are going to have to do more. Sanaya Fagan and Chloe Kitts have carried them, but I think they're going to need more consistent guard play for sure. But I like that comparison a lot, because there's some veterans on South Carolina that have been there. I think Raven Johnson's only ever been to the Final Four every year she's been there. So they definitely have a huge X target on their back.
What about the matchups tonight?
Woo! Texas and TCU. A little history there with Haley Van Lith. When she was at Louisville playing Texas, a little chatter from them. I think TCU has been a great story in the women's game. I don't know if you followed Haley Van Lith's career of when she was at Louisville, then she went to LSU. Didn't necessarily have a great career at LSU, but Mark Campbell at TCU, I mean, turning that program from a year ago, needing players to volunteer to walk on because they didn't have enough players, to winning the Big 12 and opportunity to get to the Final Four. So I think having been in Austin to cover the first 2 rounds and seeing Texas up close and personal, wondering how they would look after that SEC tournament, they're really good, Steve. They are really good. And I think kind of like Houston, they just guard. Like, they just guard you, and they're super tough, super physical, and I'm curious if TCU can handle that, if they're ready for that. Having covered their Illinois game, Illinois Big Ten, their coach felt like, hey, we've played UCLA, we played USC, we're used to this kind of physicality. And afterwards, she was like, we hadn't seen that before. So I'm curious to see if TCU can handle that. And in regards to UConn, USC, I think Connecticut's look really good. I mean, I'd be curious what you think. I mean, you follow both, but Paige Beckers, many people forget she was as a freshman, she was player of the year, and Caitlin Clark alongside, but she's, this is her last send off. And I know they want to get Gino another title. So, I think that they can get there. I think that they can get to the Final Four.
I'm glad you mentioned Paige Beckers, because when she was a freshman, she was, as you said, terrific, and then got hurt, that series of injuries. To see her shine again, I think is pretty cool to see. Let me ask about Florida. They're in the WBIT here, have a chance to bring home a championship. We don't know what's going to happen, obviously, with NIL and who's leaving and who's staying. We don't know. But do you think Florida now is on the right track in a very difficult league?
Yeah, I mean, there was times during conference play that, like, if it was a little bit more forgiving, if the bottom wasn't as good as it was, that, and I told Kelly Ray Finley this, I'm like, a couple more wins, y'all could be in the tournament. I mean, I don't think there was a team that would have wanted to face them, with the talented freshmen and some of the veterans on the team and the way that they play. Doesn't surprise me the success that they're having in the WBIT, but I just want the team to stick together. I would like to talk to you about this with the portal, because opening it up right in the middle of the NCAA tournament, it's really hard. It's really hard to watch. So I can't even imagine trying to keep your players focused for games, keep your roster intact. And players leaving for what? There's greed, there's money, there's agents, there's everything. But if this team can stay together long term, I really like this team. And I've told Kelly Ray that. I'm like, if everybody stays and everybody commits and you keep recruiting the way you're recruiting, the style that they play is good for the league. I think they can have success in the league. Just, how this has been, poaching and trying to, the higher the dollar, do players leave? I don't know what to make of it. I'd be real curious your take.
Well, my take is this. I wouldn't coach today. Because I'm older school, right? I mean, think about it. The Krzyzewskis and those guys got out because they didn't want to go through this. And I understand there's change. I've always believed athletes should be paid something, because the NCAA was making ridiculous amounts of money and the athletes weren't getting, except for the scholarship. So always for that. Did I ever think it was going to be like it is now? No one did, right? Look, it isn't even NIL anymore. You're paying players. That's what this is. You're paying. It isn't NIL. You're paying players. But that's the landscape that we're in. So whether we like it or whether we don't, guess what? That's what you have to navigate. And coaches have to navigate it. Players have to navigate it, because they're getting, in their ears all over the place. It's the way it is.
It's hard for me, because thinking back to my career at Florida, as a walk-on, it was like, walk-ons didn't get scholarships, and getting a scholarship was my NIL. And so, a lot of coaches, I spent a lot of time this season with Nikki Fargas, who is the president of the Las Vegas Aces, and Kelly Harper, who lost her job at Tennessee, is now at Missouri. We got, I got a lot of insight from them. And in the SEC, you could say these are many WNBA teams with very similar budgets to the WNBA. I mean, this is women's college basketball too that we're talking about. And so, but there are no rules. Like Nikki Fargas, you have bosses, you have a draft, you have a cap, you have all these. There's no cap.
Nope.
There's none of that. It's the wild, wild west. And so I'm looking at Florida, and and Kelly Ray and I talk all the time. It's like, how do we keep this team together? I know that everybody likes Coach. I know that. It's just keeping them there. And I love your take. I appreciate it. It does get hard when you're watching good players leave and you want to keep rooting for them. And so when someone stays, you're like, whoa, what? You're staying? It must have been a really good offer.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you. And we'll see what happens tonight and what goes on with the rest of the women's tournament. Always appreciate you. Thank you, Steffi.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime, you know that. Steffi Sorensen joining us here on our Sports Scene podcast. Florida baseball will take on Vanderbilt. Their play-by-play voice, Andrew Allegretta, will wrap up our show today. Stay with us.
What's up, everyone? I'm Mike Pouncey, and this is my twin brother, Marquise Pouncey, and this is Life After Football.
Let's go. We are the owners of Tropical Distillery, and JF Hayden's is our liqueur brand. We have 5 different flavors: a mango, a lychee, an espresso, citrus, and key lime pie. We pride ourselves on not only being a Florida-made brand, but also a cocktail solution. With that being said, cheers, and go Gators.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Roos Ogra for your personal price plan today.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to our Sports Scene podcast. Just a quick reminder, tomorrow, Jeff Cardozo and I have our first On Deck podcast of the year. That'll be live at 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then if the Gator men's basketball team wins game 1, Mark Wise and I back with a Hoop There It Is podcast Sunday at noon. We will, regardless of what they do, have our final Hoop There It Is podcast Tuesday at 10 a.m. So that's all going to be coming up. All right, we're going to end our show today by talking Vanderbilt baseball. Their play-by-play voice, Andrew Allegretta, joins us. Hey, Andrew, how are you? Welcome.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm okay. Tough weekend for you guys. Florida's had a few of those too. As you look at what Vanderbilt's done thus far, for maybe some Gator fans who are listening, sort of give us the overview of what's happened so far this year for you.
I still think it's been a pretty solid season. It's been up and down to start off conference play. Went 1-2 versus Auburn. That does include giving up a grand slam late in that ball game to the Tigers. It could have been 2 out of 3 for Vanderbilt. Swept Texas A&M, and then lost all 3 versus Arkansas. I do think Arkansas is very, very good this season, if not possibly the best team in the conference. The second game went to extra innings. We held the lead 3-2 in the top of the 8th inning versus Arkansas yesterday. So I do think Vanderbilt has perhaps a little bit of a question mark when it comes to the late stages of ball games. It's a team with, I would say, a reasonable amount of youth in college baseball these days. Like our starting third baseman is a freshman. Our starting left fielder was a freshman. Our starting first baseman is a junior college transfer in his first season. Our starting catcher is a sophomore that didn't play very much. I think there's a lot of talent out there. I do think they're still trying to figure out exactly how all of the pieces come together. But overall, still good. Top 25 team, 20 victories so far. This past weekend was difficult, but if you kind of get outside of that, it's still been a good start to the season.
What's, in your view, been the strength of the team at this point?
Oddly enough, that's kind of a good question. I think we do a lot of things pretty well. I'm not sure if you could pinpoint one thing that excels above everything else. The pitching staff probably is your best bet. I do think what we have seen from this team has been a couple of individuals really step up. So Cody Bowker is going to pitch likely game 2 for Vanderbilt. He's a transfer from Georgetown. I think he's done an excellent job for Vanderbilt. Perhaps not a 1 ERA type of guy that's going to strike out 15 batters, but boy, is he remarkably consistent. He's going to keep things in front of you. He's going to keep you in a game as long as he's out there. Pitched so well in game 3 versus Auburn until things kind of unraveled late. And then our game 3 starter, Connor Fennell, is this almost out of nowhere. Really talented kid. That was the Friday night starter versus Fort Dayton a season ago. He's a sophomore transfer. He tops out at 88, Steve. He's so not Southeastern Conference.
Yeah.
He tops out at 88, 89. And he's got a wicked changeup that settles 77, and then a pretty darn good slider that drops down at 73. He's just so not like what everybody faces. He had 10 strikeouts versus Arkansas yesterday, had 8 strikeouts versus Texas A&M 2 weeks ago. And again, he tops out at 88. So I think we've had some really significant growth from a couple of individual pitchers. Again, we've got to button up some things late in ball games. But a handful of pitchers have been really, really special this year.
Defensively, how good a team are you?
Pretty good. We gauge everything around here based on, the days of having Enrique Bradfield Jr. gobble up everything in center field, or Dansby Swanson gobble up everything at shortstop. RJ Austin is not Enrique Bradfield Jr. in center field, but he's pretty darn good. I think a lot of people would take him as their center fielder. Jonathan Vastine is, rock solid at short. Brody Johnston, pay attention for him. The freshman third baseman, the numbers that pop are his offensive numbers, but he's been darn good at third base. He's got an absolute cannon from third to first. It's wild. And I think our catcher, Colin Barzy, is pretty good. I think the numbers suggest we're top 5 in the conference when it comes to fielding percentage. We're good. Are we a major league defense running out there every single Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? I don't know. But we're really good for this league.
Florida's had its issues, obviously. If I said to you to close here, Andrew, Vanderbilt wins this series, how would you fill that in?
The hitting gets going. It's been there in spurts. The past couple of weekends have been more difficult. I think there's a 50-point difference between overall team batting average and SEC batting average.
Wow.
Right? We're not gonna score 15 runs. We're not designed like Tennessee, and that's okay. We don't desire to be designed like Tennessee or Georgia. But we scored no runs in the opener versus Arkansas. We scored 4 runs in game 2, and then we scored 3 in game 3. We need that number to be closer to 6, 7, or 8. And if we're in that range, I think we've got a pretty good chance to get out of Gainesville with 2 out of 3. If it's not, then you never know. We'll see.
You mentioned about Arkansas real quick. Not just because of the series they played against you, but they look, if they stay healthy, like they're pretty legit. Would you agree?
I think right now, and I said this during our broadcast, they absolutely feel destined for Omaha to me. But this is the last weekend in March, and there's a lot of teams that felt destined for Omaha the last weekend in March. And the first weekend of June rolled around, and then they didn't play on the second weekend of June. But their pitching staff is incredible, really, really good. And what they do have is enough physicality, and it's kind of what they did to us. We held them down from a pitching standpoint. All 3 games were under 10 runs, which is the first time in any one of those games that they scored less than 10 runs in conference play. They've played 9 conference games. 6 of them they scored 10 runs or more. 3 of them they didn't. The 3 were against us. But they've got enough physicality to hit a couple of 2-run home runs or a 3-run home run. And now all of a sudden you're down 6-0 against a bullpen that's got enough bullets in the back end that it's just going to be really difficult. Easily they're the best team that we faced so far. And, if they finally break through and win that national championship this year that they've been searching for so long, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. Appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you. Safe journey here.
Thanks, Steve. Good to talk.
You got it. Andrew Allegretta, good dude, play-by-play voice of the Vanderbilt Commodores. That's going to do it for our Sports Scene podcast for today. Thanks to Zach Rothrock for his good job producing it. We thank you for consuming it, either live or however you do, whenever you choose to do it. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Steve Russell. So long, everybody.